Well, we've got a quorum here now, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got one item on the agenda for today's meeting. We have the treasurer with us to discuss some additional information on the Altus project. So with that, Mr. Treasurer, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having us. You want us to come up here?
Please do. No, please. I think you have a PowerPoint presentation as well?
No, I think she just did this.
Just for us, okay, gotcha.
We weren't really aware that she was going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation, so we just printed this stuff up.
Okay.
That's okay.
Great, absolutely.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry I was late.
No problem.
That's all right. Appreciate the time. What I wanted to do was give you, because I know you all see probably many projects. So I'll just give you a brief few-minute history of the project and then where we are and what our future needs are. So the project back in 2014, the board approved for us to go out, the Treasurer's Office to go out for an RFP to increase, to basically address 3 core items with that we were experiencing. And that was, there were audit findings for accounting and IT. We also have a legacy system that was, at that time, over 25 years old. Now it's 30 years old, and as you know, it's limping along, and we're doing a refresh. But that needed to be addressed, as well as aligning us with current best practices and industry standards from a security perspective, technology perspective, and a business perspective, and aligning with the Maricopa County technology area as well. So that was a key item.
Accounting was a big issue, though. That was probably the ugliest of the 3, correct? I'm sorry,
Please.
as far as the most
yes.
powerful, most
Correct.
detrimental to the future progress of the treasurer's system.
Correct.
So, okay.
And the infrastructure and the way the systems had been structured was that it was very hard to make changes to it, and it was not extensible and so on. So we needed to have a system and systems that satisfied those items. So in May of 2016, the board went ahead and approved the budget then and the project to begin. And I had the good fortune of joining in June of 16 to work with this project and the office. The original plan and the way the project was originally set up by my predecessors were that it was a big bang theory, if you will. All of the work was done at the same time as one major implementation that was done. The project also was to last about 30 months. And in order to keep the cost of the project down, several of the supporting items were not included in the project. The assumptions made at that time were that those things would get done elsewhere, outside of the project. So the project kicked off in June, as I mentioned, and if we go to the next slide, we made a change to this because there are many challenges to the original plan that was developed. One was the Big Bang Theory, where you have all these systems going live at one time. So we changed to a phased approach, and we successfully implemented phase 1, which addressed our accounting and our investment in debt systems. And that went, we did our implementation activities February of 2018. We went live on March 1st of 18, and that was successfully completed. What we also had to address were some of those challenges that basically were part of that original plan. And those challenges included, we had to bring in the functionality that was required to support the accounting and the investment. And we funded those out of our management reserve that was within the project funding that we already had. That included interfaces, reports, a phased go-live approach, because there's additional cost to that. Functionality that was not included. Functionality that we built outside of the project was our agency websites and our data repository. But there were challenges with keeping it outside as well. And after the go-live, we had a warranty period where we addressed production challenges that we had in our data repository and our website. Accounting was good, the system was good, we didn't have issues there. And all that, again, was funded out of our management reserve. One of the items we had many items that came out of our lessons learned. We have incorporated those for phase 2, but was that we needed to include the functionality that is required to support the implementation. You can't do it kind of one-off type thing. It has to be included in the project so that you have it all coordinated together through testing, development, and so on. So this request here is to actually fold in that missing or lacking functionality that's needed for our property tax to go live. So we kicked off our phase 2, which was back in September, and this request is actually to pull in that functionality, as I mentioned, to support that, as well as extend it and include the required resources to implement phase 2, our property tax. And if we go to the next slide, which is the last slide, the rest of the slides, I know there's a lot in the presentation or appendix items. But this change request is to give us the funding that's required for successful implementation. And it includes the functionality, as I mentioned, the resourcing and the extended timeline to October of 2022. What that allows us to do is to do also a parallel tax roll. So we run our parallel tax out of our legacy system in 2022. And we also, with that same data, pull it into the new system when we run a parallel from that, just to ensure that our services we're providing the taxpayers are accurate. What we are requesting is that the $10,519,930 increase be included in the budget recommendation.
All right. Questions from my colleagues?
I'm the new person here, so pardon me if I ask questions that have already been answered. But, you know, we've seen a lot of people talking about doing IT improvements in different departments. Does Maricopa County have an IT group that oversees all of this, that coordinates it from one department to another so that we're not? I'll back up a little bit. I know from my previous experience at the municipal level that IT personnel are good ones are really difficult to come by. And so that's part of what motivated the question. So I'm just curious what kind of oversight we have over the process and how we decide what software to use.
Absolutely. So we work closely with our OET department.
Which is ours at the county, so that's, yeah.
Correct.
What we've done is this project's gone along, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, we have incorporated OET in every step of the project to make sure that everything that we do is compatible with them, and they have been extremely helpful in pointing out and suggesting different changes here and there. But we do coordinate very closely with them and rely on them quite a bit. We appreciate that.
And it's a good question, and we are also lined up to help meet the 2022 strategic goal that OET has, which is for being more of a mobile infrastructure and supporting that security needs and so on. So we are in alignment with that. And we, as our treasurer stated, we are tightly coupled with them.
Okay. Well, and half of the budget increase is a request for contract staff augmentation.
Correct.
So I assume that is to bring in contract IT people that would support the project?
Correct, because you, as a project, you have a lot of extra development work and so on, but when that's done, then you level out to your operating resource level.
And I would just add on that, Supervisor Sellers, so Grant Thornton has been a great partner on this project, and their sort of key contact person on this has been Chad Kirkpatrick, who's the head of GITA, right, that's, I think it has a different name now, but basically under Governor Brewer ran the IT operations, and I think, would you agree, Mr. Treasurer, has been of great assistance on this project?
Absolutely. You know, there's no question with that. The insight he's had in dealing with the state, as the state's CIO, he brings that consulting firm and bringing it down to us, and he knows all the problems. Without their assistance, we would not be anywhere near as far along as we are, and would have cost significantly more, and risk would have been significantly higher.
Other questions from my colleagues?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, I kind of came in the middle of your presentation, so just so I understand, the request that is being made today was not included in the original price tag of the system. And why wasn't that? I mean, we should know exactly how much this whole thing is going to cost, and not find out last week, oh, by the way, here's an additional request that's going to be added to it. So I think the important thing for us to be fiscally responsible is to know exactly how much this whole project is going to cost. Do we have a number on that?
I think we're getting closer to.
Can we do this real quick? Steve, I think this is going to be helpful for Mr. Sellers as well. Can we just let's do a quick overview of, okay, we started here. Original budget was X. Phase 1 was going to be completed by this date, phase 2 by this date. We understand phase 1 had some overruns that I think we all got our arms around over time. But I think, especially for Mr. Sellers' perspective, it would be helpful to not look at this in a vacuum and look at it holistically as far as timeline. And then when do we expect it to be done, and financial costs against original budgeted cost.
Sure.
And then that puts it all into perspective. Steve, I don't want to hijack your question, but I think it's helpful.
That's fair. And Mr. Chairman, also, if I might, while you're doing that, I'd like to know, are there full-time people being added to the treasurer's office to support this? Because then that would represent ongoing expense.
Because you touched on that in phase 1.
Right. Yeah, and there will be, and I'll let you address the details on that, but I'll do the macro version that Steve's talking about. When we first started this project, we didn't really know what the problems were. So we got in, investigated, Treasurer's Office staff did all the work. We didn't have consultants come in. I made them go through the data. They put the RFP together the best they could with the information they had. Since that time, there have been major changes in IT infrastructure and just general approach. The county has a whole new accounting system that we weren't aware of at that time, so we had to make adjustments for that. And the schools have changed some of the things they're doing, so everything had to be adjusted as this thing goes forward. So we're responding in real time to changing technologies. That's one of the problems you have with an IT project that runs this long. Oftentimes you get to the end of it and where you started, now you're obsolete. Now, the good news about these is we fully expect to get 20 to 30 years out of this system as well. So we'll distribute some of that pain over many years.
And pardon me for interrupting. I think one of the things you said there was that you weren't aware of a system, and that's the reason I asked my original question about the coordination of the IT efforts. So it sounds like that wasn't in place in the beginning.
Well, no, because again, as time goes on, ADP was added, for example. I think they were using PeopleSoft before, and there were some problems with that, and that system was falling apart. So they had to switch. Well, ADP has different requirements. Our system has to interact with that. Your accounting system was by CGI. I don't know if they've got all their changes done, but that, again, was an upgrade to the county that we didn't foresee. Nobody foresaw at the time. It came up, the county decided to do it, and it didn't create any problems other than it changed what we had to interface with. It's a newer technology and one that'll last. The old technology that the county had was, well, it was still probably more advanced than what we had in the treasurer's office. They needed to move on to protect the county, and we're in the same boat. So when we designed the system, work with the existing conditions, and those conditions changed, we had to adapt. In addition to that, we just simply don't physically have enough people to be able to do this project the way it was initially anticipated. We got 60 people in the whole office. How many are IT?
17 with the additional staff.
17 now. We didn't at the time. So that had to be parsed out in a workable method. So we couldn't do all the work. We do what we can, and we move it along a timeline instead. And it's easier to watch and control, but it does add costs.
So the original project, the way it was laid out, they laid it out for 30 months, beginning June 2018 through, June 2016 through December 2018, without the required functionality needed to even go live. They only had very specific things. They had both, they had all three applications, the property tax, the accounting and the investment and debt management all going on at the same time with the same people. And that was the original plan that had been laid out. And when I joined and we kicked the project off and started going, that's when we realized that it's very risky to go live with one big bang and not being able to utilize, go live in phases and start utilizing the services that we paid for. And so we went with a phased approach. That meant that we had to stop working on the property tax, move that out, and focused on phase one, which was, like I mentioned, those 2 applications. Plus, we had to then cover and build the interfaces, as our treasurer mentioned, like with ADP, CGI. We had many, many interfaces that had to be built. Those were funded out of the project, so that consumed our management reserve. We have a original budget was $35 million. Management reserve, within that $35 million was $3.5 million of management reserve. And in the appendix, there's details of how that money was spent. Out of that management reserve, we funded all that additional functionality that was not covered in the project or included in the scope. We've since then started up phase 2, which is the property tax, and that started in September of 2018. And that we are in the data mapping and data conversion phase right now, which is on schedule. And our first property tax roll will be in August, September of 2022. Thomson Reuters, who is the vendor that's supplying the Amentum, which is the property tax system, they highly recommend you bill in the old system, the legacy system, you collect in the new. So that's why we are timing it at the tax roll time. That will also give us the opportunity to do a complete parallel tax roll in the new system. So we actually do the tax roll in the legacy system, let it go out to our taxpayers, we run it in the new system, and we compare the results.
So, Mr. Chairman, so in a nutshell then, Debbie?
Yes.
31.5 million budget with about a 3.5 million contingency. And so that brings us to 35 million.
Mm-hmm.
First phase, June of 16, completed December of 18. We had some hiccups, understand that were somewhat understandable hiccups. Second phase started in 18, September of 18, primarily property tax based, phase 2. So what do we expect then, and if I missed this, I apologize, but what do we expect from a total cost then, comparative to the 35, and then completion date on phase 2? Phase 1 is pretty much done.
Phase 1 is done. It went live
and
in February 2018.
February or December? February?
No. Oh, no.
It was
the original plan date was December of 18.
Okay, so we got that out ahead of schedule.
So we went live for phase 2.
Got it.
Correct.
You went live for phase 1?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, phase 1.
In February.
Okay, so that's great. So when do we expect phase 2 to be done, and then what do we expect net final cost to be out of the 35?
Net is 46 million.
Okay.
So the budget request that we have is for 10.5, and that includes the resources. That includes the resources and the functionality for example, document management system. The contract with Thomson Reuters and what the property tax system requires is a data management system. That was not included in the original budgeting. The work to do that wasn't included in the original budgeting. The thought was to keep it out separate and do it outside of the project to keep costs low. Those are inherent problems to that approach, and that's what we're addressing now. Also for our websites.
Who made that decision?
That was before.
Who made that decision, Rex?
Cost.
Us?
But he did it in consultation with the entire group. You know, they gave their argument, and we listened to the consultants, and this is what the consultants recommended, and Haas made the call, based on what was known at the time.
The website's also being restructured because we have to That's all being changed with the new property tax, but also the approach of the data warehouse, which the reports just don't come out of Amentum. We have to develop the reports. So the data comes out of Amentum, which is the property tax, goes into our warehouse. Our warehouse feeds the reports, feeds our websites.
So, Mr. Chairman, just getting my arms around this, I know all this, I'm just doing it for Jack, because I don't want him to have to ask the questions. So the 10 million, so jumping from 35 to 45, the 10 million, you were starting to identify, and if I counted correctly, 3 or 4 different bases. Part of it was the personnel required to complete the project. We thought we could probably do it in-house or in a separate way of not including it.
The original
into the project.
plan
The
was
original plan.
that, yes.
And we expect that cost to be what, part of that 10 million.
So part of the 10 million on slide number 4, I have it broken out. So for the Maricopa County Resources and Contract Staff Augmentation, it's about 5.2.
Okay.
And then for the Grant Thornton Extension, and that includes 3 additional technical people, their cost is 5.3. So
Got it.
that's where the 10 comes into play.
Okay. And so, Royce, you thought that, I'm sorry, your predecessor believed that that 5.2 category, we would have been able to accomplish in-house?
I don't think it was even considered. Like I said, the scope of the project has changed significantly since the original parameters.
So are you saying that this is not a cost overrun, this is unexpected, or
It's a change in scope.
the need of more additional resources to complete the project that weren't factored into the original bid, meaning that we didn't realize we needed software X, Y, and Z in order to accomplish it. So it's not, these are not necessarily cost overruns.
Oh, no.
It sounds as though that this was not properly bid out in the beginning, as far as what the cost would be and the necessary resources to accomplish the end goal.
It was not scoped out appropriately.
I would agree with that, yes.
Yes.
But I do think that they did the best they could with what was known at the time.
I
It's
agree.
just, nobody's looked at this thing in 20 years.
And how old is the system? It's longer than 20
Now
years.
it's 30, yeah.
30. And we're, it's on equipment that's unsupported. So we're refreshing that
And when
separately.
will phase 2 be done?
October, it will go live in September of 2022, and we'll have a 1-month warranty period post-go live.
1-month warranty?
Yes.
After $45 million? And I
We
grew up in the
have-
car business. Our warranties are even better than that.
No, we have with Thomson Reuters, part of the contract that's covered in the cost is the first year maintenance. So that's all
Okay.
included in that. But from a MCTO resource perspective and a Grant Thornton perspective, we have that 1 month of warranty, and then we go into normal support with the Treasurer's Office. I do want to make a comment that to our Treasurer's Office, to our Treasurer's perspective, that for what these folks knew at the time when the original plan was developed, assumptions were made that reports and data would just come out of these applications that were purchased. Once they came in-house and we learned more about it, that's not the case. That's why we had to build a data repository to put the data in so we could build the reports and we could build, go ahead and do the interfaces with all of the other areas that we have to interface with, as well as with our websites. So with the Amentum package, it's the exact same thing. The thought was, out of the package comes all the reports, and we need that. It's not the case. So same process, same principle. Data comes out of the property tax, goes into one repository, which will be quite rich with information for the Treasurer's Office. And from there, we have a consistent way of doing our reporting and our websites.
Other questions from my colleagues?
Thank you,
Mr. Gallardo.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. When did it come about to this group? Because this is the frustrating part. We gathered the group with the help of the treasurer, gathered what is probably the county's best and brightest when it comes to IT. I'm not an IT guy. I got to rely on our staff, which are experts, to understand and come and trying to draw this out to us to make sure that we're making the right decisions. So we gathered this group, this coalition of folks, to sit down, lay this out, come up with a cost for the most part, or what is needed, work with the consultants as well. And now all of a sudden, through this, we're midway for the most part. Now come to find out, say, wait, oh, hell, we're doing it wrong. We got to go in a different direction. There's things that aren't included that need to be included. And now it's going to be costing us, or taxpayers, what is it, close to 11 million. At what point did our coalition of experts come to realize that we were going in the wrong direction, we needed to do it differently, and that new parts to it needed to be added? I guess, at what point did that happen?
Well, I don't think characterizing as going in the wrong direction is accurate. There are expansions.
I'm not
And I know that, Steve. I'm not trying to pick on you. It's just things change. The environment changed. You came up with CGI, all these other programs, so the parameters started changing there. The technology itself changed during that course, during that period of time.
And when was that period?
It's constantly changing. It's always changing. But I think what you're trying to get at is, when did we know we really missed the mark? Is what you're going for.
Exactly.
And I would say probably about the time we hired Debbie to come on and take a look at what was going on. And she came in from a fresh perspective and analyzed everything. And I think at that point we went, this thing is creeping like crazy, and we need to let people know. And I think we did at that time.
And what's the possibility? I mean, technology is changing. I mean, I bought an iPhone 8, and then a month later they came out with the iPhone 10. And it's like, oh hell, if I would have known 1 month, I would have waited. But at what point, I guess, are we going to know, okay, in terms of technology, in terms of all the new components to it, we have it all. This is the final number. We're not going to come back to this board and ask for another $10 million or whatever that number would be.
I'd like to be able to tell you that that'll never happen, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We believe this is all that we'll need. The contractors, both of the contractors, both GT, Grant Thornton, who has cut their costs significantly and given us some credits and things like that, trying to help us, and Thomson Reuters have said that they are going to try and keep everything within the current scope. Now, having said that, when they get to changes that come along, if we're missing the boat on something, it might not be responsible to just pass it by. But they have both committed to no change orders. Microsoft and I, if you recall, had a little difference of opinion on how that was going to be. It didn't work out too well for them. I don't think Thomson Reuters wants to experience that, and they have been a very good partner as of late, and I don't expect any problems from them. And Grant Thornton, at every corner, they're looking at trying to find ways to get us money and credit it back. And I don't know if you've talked to them about what they've actually done. They've made some significant cuts. It's been helpful.
I guess one of the things I'm struggling with, and particularly in view of the fact that technology is changing so rapidly, why does this take 4 years?
Well, because we don't have the resources. If we had gathered the resources that we needed to do it within this time frame, that $40 million was going to look cheap. You'd have to throw that much raw horsepower.
But I feel concerned that by the time we get to 4 years from now, that we may be out of date from a technology standpoint.
We might be, but it'll still work. Our last one worked for 30 years, despite, if you recall, when that system was first built, people were still playing with DOS 2.0. Now they're on Windows. Nobody even knows what DOS is. So our system was able to adapt that whole time. And there's a lot of functionality in this new system that is designed to do exactly what you said, adapt to anything that could be coming forward in the future.
But why does it take 4 years?
So from a development perspective for the property tax, lining up with the Thomson Reuters time plan, basically it's 2 years of development. So they do an agile approach, which I won't go into all that, but anyway, it's 2 years of development. Prior to that development, what's going on right now is we're mapping our data to their formats. And that includes, we call it a 1, they call it an A, for example. It's that translation as well. That we have a lot of data, and we are going through that activity. In the latter part of this year, Thomson Reuters comes out on site with our data loaded into their system. And you need to remember that when this RFP went out, it was worked on in 2012, 2013. That was quite a while ago. Thomson Reuters responded to it, and their system has continually been changing as well. So we have to, at the end of this year, when Thomson Reuters comes back and on site with us, their system as it stands today with our data in it, we would then walk through all the requirements that are listed in the contract. And we've been doing a lot of refreshing of the requirements, walking through with our business partners, process flows laid out, all this is well documented and worked through. But what Thomson Reuters does with our business partners then is walk through and say, here's how you call researching or doing an apportionment. And they actually walk it through in their system. And our business agrees that, yes, I agree that that's a fit and that works. You have to realize that with the property tax system that TR has, that their system, as I mentioned, has changed over the years since the RFP went out. And so things that might have been gaps then will be fits now. Things that might have been fits maybe have been changed a bit and now might be a gap. But there's going to be that blending and washing out and working through them. That's when they lock down. After we've gone through that assessment jointly together, then they will, we lock it down, and that's when we do the building. Again, because of their recommendation to go time it at the time of a tax roll. We do 2 years of development. We have 8 months of user acceptance testing. 8 months. There is a lot here to go through, and we can't afford to have errors.
I'll blame this on the assessor. He keeps adding new parcels. You know, this county, if it would stop growing, it would make things easier, but I don't see that happening.
I mean, we're going on year 3.
Yeah, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to grow faster.
But Royce, in all due respect, the private sector doesn't work with the fact that, well, we hope this is it.
Mm-hmm.
You have a $10 million, I'm not going to call it an overrun, but you are outside of the original budget, we're $10 million more. And then Mr. Gallardo asked the question about, do we think this is it? And you can't answer that. Well, look, we got to figure this out. And I say that, just let me finish. I say that because I understand technology changes, but at some point you draw the line in the sand and you embrace what you have and you move with it. And I am not a technology expert. But to tell us and how we run the 4th largest county in America that we might have to go another 5 million or another 10 million, if every department did that, we'd be broke.
Yeah, it'd be
so I think we have to figure out today, before we vote on this item, whenever it's going to come up on Wednesday, what is the number? And how much longer is it going to change? You have to put yourself in our position.
No, and I do understand that. And I have always been open and honest with you guys, all of you. And I cannot today tell you exactly that the number will never change. It could go down, it could go up.
But why can't you? Why can't you, Debbie? Why can't you tell us this $10.5 million more that we have to spend when our budgeting staff gave you the $3.5 million contingency at the outset? Why can't you tell us this is going to get us there? I don't understand why there's ambiguity.
So these funds here, this does cover the project. What our treasurer is referring to is if there's some radical change in the technologies that we might have to address. What I can say, we did have Thomson Reuters come out.
Right.
And they gave us the roadmap of where they're going to be. Our technologies line up with them, and it lines up with the MC.
Well, why can't we lock in with those technologies, I guess is my question. Why can't we say whether they change or not? You see what I'm saying?
No, we are locked in.
Okay.
I have to say that with our treasurer, I think if you went and spoke with any IT person, things can happen. But for what we've laid out, the requirements and the work that we've done between after we went live with phase 1, all the requirements that we've gone through with our business partners, their process flows, pulling in these additional changes that are the websites, that the document management system, the data repository. We feel that this is a good, solid number that will get us to where we need to be.
Let me put my statement a little different way. The consultants and all of our IT people believe that, yes, this is it. I'm the one that's skeptical because I don't believe anything until it happens. And then I'm questioning it, okay? So if there's another change, or if the county adds another program or something changes there and we have to adjust, there could be fees. But both of these consultants have committed to keeping within those guidelines. And when she's talking about some things are a fit, some things may be a gap, they're going to trade off things that are now a fit for what may be a gap. So they're going to work within the existing budget and infrastructure to move things around. But if they find some catastrophic failure, I don't think that it would be prudent to say we're going to deny them another million or whatever it is. I can't even make up a number because we don't know what it is. When we're writing, we've already spent this much money on it, we just need a little bit more.
No, I get that, but what would a catastrophic failure be? That's what
I don't know, we haven't seen it.
We're not seeing, we think this is the good number.
I mean,
They
it looks like they
believe
picked up
this
this
is-
rock and looked at it from every which angle.
They have.
Yeah. So
I'm the one that's
we
skeptical.
should know that. Hey, skepticism's good, especially in business. To follow up on Mr. Sellers' question about the 2022, but really, it's gonna be a little sooner than that, because you're saying you're running testing along the way to make
Oh,
sure
8
it's
months
working.
of user acceptance
Yeah,
testing.
so that includes that.
Right, oh, yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
So let me ask you a totally unfair question. How long do you think this system is going to be operable for the treasurer's office?
So this system, it's a package. Thomson Reuters maintains it. Within the contract, we have listed the maintenance agreement over X amount of years. And so they maintain the system. If we need changes to it, legislative changes come along, they will make the changes, and the legislative changes are already baked into the annual maintenance cost. If there is some customization that the treasurer's office comes out with over the years, we could potentially pay them to do that work, but it's their product, they have to make the change, we can't.
The vendor's
So there've been-
expectation is that it's 20 years.
Okay, 20 years. All right, we got that down, right?
I would expect it to last longer than that,
I think that's,
barring any radical changes in technology.
I think that's important to know, and, because if we're talking about something in 3 years was gonna be out of date. What is that annual agreement, cost gonna be?
First year is included already in the contract. After that, it's around $1 million, then it goes up a little bit each year. And this is all the current contract that has been signed. After the 7th year, then it's an annual negotiation as far as the cost goes.
Other questions from my colleagues?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Going back to Supervisor Sellers' first question, and that is the coordination. I know when this project started, there was a committee, I guess, I don't know what we called it, a committee or so, that was working to put this project or move this project forward. Is that committee still ongoing? Are
Yes,
they
it
part
is.
of this discussion?
It is.
So to answer his question, yes.
It's not really the same committee, because the first committee was pretty much just our own people.
Our IT folks are at the table?
They are now, and as soon as I took over, the first thing we did was make sure that your IT people were involved every single step of the way.
That was part of the
Nothing
problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was exactly.
And that's a fair point. I should note that our CIO is supportive of this request. So I think that's in fairness to you guys, and I think it does put an exclamation point on the change that has occurred, that the county has gotten involved in this process.
I can't wait to pay my taxes.
Other questions from my colleagues? All right, thank you for your time again. This will be on the agenda on Wednesday. We appreciate you coming and your work on this and answering all our questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And with,
I would extend one more invitation to you, your staff, or anybody that wants to attend any of these meetings at any time. Just let us know and put them on the email list. They can come, they can stay, whatever they want to do.
So I think when it's done, it's gonna be
He's an okay guy.
great, and it's gonna be peace of mind. Just have to make sure that, I mean, I get that you thought this included A, B, and C, but you needed D, E, and F. That's different than having a cost overrun.
Right, and that's why I want to just
and
change.
at this
Motion to
time,
go into
yeah,
exec-
exactly.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
go into executive session.
Are we not done?
No, we have a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Move into executive session.
Mr. Garrity, is Chris
Hey, boys.